Lost civilizations, mysterious sunken cities, and legendary Atlantis itself. Vanished beneath the waves.
There is a huge amount of unrecorded human history beneath the ocean surface that we don't know very much about at all.
Is this a huge underwater temple carved by a mysterious lost civilization? And is the real site of Atlantis finally about to be revealed? Stories of sunken cities have fascinated for millennia. First described by ancient philosopher Plato, a dazzling civilization destroyed by the gods as punishment for human pride. 2,000 years later, the idea of Atlantis continues to fascinate A-list archaeologists. Using science, not science fiction, draining the oceans exposes new evidence about Atlantis and other stories of great sunken cities around the world. As the waters recede from around the remote Japanese island of Yonaguni, a mysterious formation begins to appear. Could it be the creation of an advanced ancient people? Yonaguni lies in the East China Sea. The waters here are perilous. Schools of hammerhead sharks patrol amid powerful currents. Typhoons frequently batter the island. For divers, it's the ultimate challenge. Kiichiro Arataki is one of the pioneers of diving here. Searching for a new dive site, he makes a startling discovery: the size of 5 football fields. Smooth-sided walls rise up to the summit, the height of an 8-story building. Flights of stone steps climb up from the base. It's impossible to investigate the structure fully by diving. The only way is to conduct a survey using the latest scanning technology. Using sonar scans, Hironobu Kan records a complete digital map of the seafloor. Using this data, it's possible for the very first time to drain away the waters and reveal what lies beneath in exact detail. The summit of the mysterious structure begins to appear. Water pours off its smooth terraced layers, exposing them once again to the sky. And with the monument left high and dry, its true scale becomes clear. Vast, imposing, and spectacular. The incredible discovery attracts worldwide attention. Divers, journalists, and TV crews flock to Yonaguni, all asking, what could this mysterious structure be? On the far side of the tunnel, a road loops around to a flight of steps, watched over by 2 mysterious stone objects. According to ancient Japanese folklore, the dragon god Ryujin lives in an underwater palace, watched over by turtles. To Professor Kimura, this indicates that the monument is so important, it needs guarding. But the monument's most striking feature is its wide, flat terraces, large enough to support thousands of people. Professor Kimura believes the gateway, stairs, turtles, and terraces all point towards one purpose. But to prove his theory, Professor Kimura needs more: the artifacts of those who once lived here. He scours the structure looking for clues and discovers what looks like primitive tools. Then, hidden behind one of the Great Walls, the most remarkable find of all.
Look at this. A symbol is inscribed here, and here's a hole. Probably they hung this article like this. And here's something looking like a letter. Maybe it could be a kind of talisman to protect people from evil.
For Professor Kimura, the case is closed. The artifacts and the monument's regular shapes prove that humans lived here 8,000 years ago. After that, rising sea levels claimed the territory of this lost race of master builders. But is that the real story of Yanaguni? Professor Kimura believes that this extraordinary structure off the coast of Japan is a gigantic castle built long before the pyramids of Egypt by a mysterious lost civilization. But is it? With the water drained away, it's possible to scrutinize the monument in forensic detail. The edges appear regular and straight, as if made from blocks carved by human hand. But closer examination reveals something else. The surfaces are smooth and unbroken. The monument is not assembled from handmade blocks. But what about the gateway, steps, turtles, and pool? Could it be that an ancient people carved into this huge rock, transforming it into a great castle or temple? Studying the headland on shore provides the answer. The shapes here are strikingly similar to those found on the monument, and that's because they were formed in exactly the same way. Both are made of sandstone. Alikanos Bay, a tourist hotspot on the island of Zakynthos, Greece. Diver Pavlos Voutos sets out to take some underwater photos.
I went in the water to make photographs. General photographs of fish, of weed, of things in the bottom, rocks, formations, things.
Pavlos swims farther out into the bay in search of clearer water. Then, out of the gloom, he sees something that will change his life.
It was really strange. They don't look like the rocks at the harbor or the rocks at the beach. It's something really unique because it looks like man-made.
The debris stretches out for hundreds of yards in all directions. The area is so large that Pavlos is convinced he's found the remains of an entire town.
There are too many different shaped stones. They look like pavement or like walls that have fallen down and break in pieces. But definitely they don't look natural. I was dreaming of palaces and temples and ancient life. It was an amazing find.
The discovery sends a bolt of electricity through the world of archaeology. Professor Michael Stamatakis immediately travels to Zakynthos to investigate.
When they sent me initially some photographs, I have to say that I was confused. And I thought that they probably are some man-made products.
Further analysis reveals the formations are what geologists call concretions, solid blocks of sedimentary rock formed by powerful volcanic activity. Underwater vents release methane from deep within the earth. Combining with microbes and sediment, the methane causes regular circular shapes to form. Far from being a relic of ancient Greece, the structures here predate human activities by 5 million years. Despite all the evidence against his theory, Pavlos Voutos remains convinced that the fantastical landscape he discovered was shaped by his ancestors. Classical civilizations dominate the Mediterranean for over 1,000 years. Today, all around its coast, people tell stories of sunken cities. As the waters around Greece drain away further, an extraordinary underwater vista is exposed. Could these patterns on the seafloor be remnants of an ancient city? The village of Elefonisos sits on a small island just off the Greek coast. At first glance, an ordinary fishing port. But in 1967, less than 100 yards out to sea, something attracts the attention of a visiting maritime archaeologist. Snorkeling in 13 feet of water, Nicholas Fleming catches a glimpse of regular shapes on the seafloor. Then, exploring deeper, he sees what he thinks is evidence of human activity. Fleming is convinced he has found something special. But could these simply be natural formations, mimicking human structures, like the concretions of nearby Alicanus Bay? The following year, Fleming returns with a team of surveyors to discover the truth. Using tape measures, they document what they find, and the results are astonishing. The site is strewn with signs of human activity. Pots, storage vessels, and tools lie across a huge area of the seabed. There can be no doubt Fleming has discovered the remains of an ancient town. It's named Pavlopetri, after a nearby island. But who built it, and when?
Check all that.
These questions inspire a generation of archaeologists.
Submerged towns. And I'd read about Pavlopetri as a boy, and this idea of an intact prehistoric town underwater just seemed, incredibly romantic, incredibly exciting.
Henderson can now fulfill a childhood dream and explore this haunted underwater world for himself. And further into the bay, more evidence of human life and death. Diving gives intriguing glimpses of objects lying upon the seabed. But it's impossible to gain a complete picture. To do this, it must be mapped with the latest in underwater scanning technology. Using this data, it's now possible to drain away the waters above Pavlopetri and bring sunlight back to a forgotten world and a true sunken city. With the entire bay drained away, everything becomes clear. The lines are the foundations of buildings laid out in clear streets. At the heart of the town is a large open area, perhaps an ancient marketplace. And nearby, the remnants of a huge structure, perhaps an important civic building. The remains cover 20 acres, and the town could have housed 4,000 people. A thriving ancient settlement once existed here. The next challenge is to discover who built it and when.
We know how old the occupation of the site is because we've got pottery here from about 5,500 years ago. And then we've got every single bit of pottery you would expect up to about 1,100 BC. There's no gaps in that. So the place seems to have been continuously occupied throughout the Bronze Age.
Pavlopetri was occupied for 2,400 years during a revolutionary period of human development. At its peak, in the Bronze Age, around 1700 BC, it looked like this. A perfect example of the time when Europeans start to live in stone-built towns with regular laid-out streets. But one question remains. Why did the builders of this town choose this particular location in a remote part of ancient Greece? Exploring the drained landscape around the ancient city reveals an all-important clue. At its edge, a huge sandbank stretches out into the ocean. During the Bronze Age, people don't build ports out of stone. They bring ships up to the shore and then beach them. And Pavlopetri's location means it can exploit the trade routes that boomed during the Bronze Age across the Mediterranean. Evidence of early commercial activity is everywhere.
The interesting thing is we've clearly got a lot of material coming in. We've found thousands and thousands of shards of very large storage vessels, which have been used for storing olive oil, wine, that kind of thing, and generally anything. They were like the containers of the day.
And that's not all. Pavlopetri is also a hub for manufacturing.
We've got a lot of evidence for loom weights. Thousands of loom weights, way more than you would need for domestic production. So it seems like maybe textiles were something that were being produced on the site and perhaps exported.
Pavlopetri is an extraordinary, bustling, vibrant port city and an important center of trade. So how did such an advanced metropolis meet its end? An ancient submerged city off the coast of Greece. How it came to lie on the seafloor. Scanning the drained bay could reveal what happened to Pavlopetri. At the edge of the town, it's possible to make out three mysterious lines. These are strips of beach rock formed by the action of sunlight on salt water. They form only near the shoreline. It can mean only one thing. Earthquakes caused this land to subside into the sea.
So there was a big earthquake. Perhaps part of the remains went under the water and part of them are still surviving. Then there was another earthquake, it was pushed under, then there was a third.
Pavlopetri is one of the most important Bronze Age sites in the world, and the oldest submerged town ever discovered. But it's not alone.
A lot of the major finds in the next couple of decades are going to come from the sea. I think we have the potential to rewrite what we know about human history.
Pavlopetri is an extraordinary find, but it is not the legendary Atlantis. Various locations for Plato's dazzling city have been proposed around the world. But most academic investigations point to one place, the Mediterranean. As its waters continue to drain away at its western end, new and tantalizing evidence is revealed. Could archaeologists finally have found the site of Plato's famous lost city? Mark Gutcher is a geophysicist, long fascinated by Plato's story.
I do think that becoming interested in Atlantis can be almost like a bug or an infection or like gambling. I think one can become obsessed.
Plato wrote about Atlantis in 360 BC, describing an advanced metropolis 9,000 years before his own time, lost beneath the waves in a cataclysmic event. Mark Gutcher has analyzed Plato's text, searching for clues to its location. Pillars of Heracles is the name given by Plato to the maritime boundary of the ancient Greek world. Many locations have been suggested, but Mark believes he has the answer: the Straits of Gibraltar.
So here at Cape Spartel, we're at the northern edge of the Moroccan Atlantic coast and just at the entrance to the Straits of Gibraltar. About 10 to 15 kilometers off to the northwest, there's a submerged bank. Some people have suggested that it might have been inhabited and it might have formed the origin of the Atlantis legend.
Today, this area sits under the second busiest shipping route in the world, a difficult place for subsea investigation. During a project to study rising sea levels here, Mark gets his chance. Using a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, he sets out to map the seafloor. Now, combining this information with the latest computer graphics, it's possible to drain away the seawater from between the ancient pillars of Heracles and attempt to solve one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of all time. Soon, rocks begin to emerge, and the unmistakable outline of an island gradually appears. Is this the site of Atlantis, exposed for the first time in 11,000 years? Once again, important clues lie in Plato's own writing.
Plato says that the city and all of its warlike men were destroyed in one day and night of terrible misfortune caused by strong earthquakes and floods.
The island revealed by draining the ocean sits on a subduction zone, a boundary between the huge tectonic plates that make up the Earth's surface, the exact point where the biggest earthquakes strike. A series of powerful earthquakes and tsunamis could have obliterated Atlantis and sent the island on which it rests down into the ocean depths.
You could imagine that during great earthquakes there might have been some subsidence. So if we were to take into account maybe 20 or 30 meters of subsidence due to those earthquakes, there might have been a somewhat larger island there.
The geology supports Plato's account of the destruction of Atlantis. But one other vital piece of evidence is still needed. Draining the ocean has revealed a mysterious island exactly where Plato said Atlantis would be. But one other piece of evidence must be present for it actually to be Atlantis: the remains of substantial man-made structures. Using the drained landscape, it's possible to study the island's surface in extraordinary three-dimensional detail. Searching carefully for the remains of walls, temples, bridges, and anything constructed by human hands. But there are none. Nowhere on this mysterious island are there any lines or geometric shapes which would indicate the presence of a great ancient city.
Atlantis did not exist in the tiny island of Spartel. If it did exist, traces of it have not yet been found.
However, the story of this submerged island is not over yet. There may be no trace of a city built out of stone, but evidence found on land nearby suggests that during the Stone Age, when sea levels were much lower, people did live here, and in many other places just like it. And during this period, our human ancestors make some of the most important breakthroughs of all time. They learn how to farm, keep domesticated animals, use sophisticated tools, build wooden houses, and begin to trade. Then, the last ice age comes to an end. Over the course of 15,000 years, sea levels rise by 400 feet, and the territory of these early people vanishes. Their tools, homes, and weapons are washed away. That elemental human story may help explain the timeless appeal of the Atlantis legend.
There are many, many stories out there in the world that recall times when land that was once inhabited was submerged. Did that information inform Plato's fiction about Atlantis?
I think there's no doubt that almost every culture in the world has a flood myth, a deluge story, because we developed as a species within this period of rising sea level. So that, for me, is so fundamental to understanding.
Plato's story of Atlantis is about human folly and the destructive power of nature.